section 4 talks about linear functions just a little bit further in depth than the y equals mx plus b that section 3 introduced to us. So we're going to talk about how we can look at slopes of two lines that are on the same x and y axis. There's a new formula there for you. Point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. I do want to point out when using point slope form, you fill in values here, here, and there. And I also want to point out that this and this are our minus signs, which means that sometimes if we're subtracting negatives, we'll have to change them to a plus. Example 1, a line with the given slope passes through a point. What is the equation of the line in point slope form? So they want your equation to look like this when all is said and done. So letter A, they're telling me that m is 4, and I can use 3, 2 as x1, y1. So all I'm going to do is substitute. Y minus, and my y1 value is 2, equals, instead of the m, I'm going to put a 4, times the quantity x minus, and my x1 value is 3. That's it. Y minus 2 equals 4 times x minus 3. In letter B, my slope is 1/2. My x1 is -5, and my y1 is 6. So when I substitute, I get y minus y1 is 6 equals 1/2, that's m. And then here's where that minus a negative comes in. It's x minus the x1 value, but because the x1 value is a -5, the minus a negative turns positive. And so you end up with an x plus 5 inside. A line passes through the given points. What is the equation of the line in point slope form? Again, this is what they're looking for. This section differs from the last one because they're not specifically giving you m. So we have to do that first, something we learned earlier in the chapter. So I'm going to start by labeling my points x1, y1 and x2, y2. Don't forget that slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if I substitute, I do 9 minus 1 over 7 minus 5. 9 minus 1 is 8, and 7 minus 5 is 2, so my slope is 4. Now you can use that slope in either ordered pair. It does not matter which ordered pair you use. You can use this slope and one of the ordered pairs. I'm just going to use this one. It's already labeled x1, y1. I'm going to put it into point slope form. So y minus 1 equals 4 times x minus 5. You're technically done. Nothing else is needed, but I do want to point out, had you used this ordered pair, and you don't have to, your equation would have been y minus 9 equals 4 times the quantity x minus 7. You do not need them both. Same thing with letter B. I'm going to label this one x1, y1, and this one x2, y2. And I'm going to start by finding the slope. So m is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if I subtract my y values, I get 8 minus a -2, and I'll turn positive, over 0 minus 4. That's 10 over -4, which is -5/2. So I'm going to use that -5/2 and this first ordered pair in y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So y plus 2, because my y1 value is a -2, that'll change positive, equals -5/2 times x minus 4. You can use the other ordered pair. Your equation will look different, but there's nothing wrong with that. You'll notice in these you try it's that they gave you both equations, and it does not matter which one you use. That's entirely up to you. Standard form. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. I do want to point out that there is two valuable things that come out of standard form. The first is that a, b, and c cannot be fractions or decimals. So it is part of that take note that you see on the screen. No fractions or decimals. Also, that means I want the x term first, followed by the y term, and then equaling the constant, the number without a letter with it. So example 3 wants you to write them in standard form. So typically speaking, the first thing I take care of is the order. And the order says they want x to come first, so I'm going to bring the x term over. When I do, I get negative 3x plus y equals negative 7. And I actually happen to be done because I have x, then y equaling the constant. So if you take a look at letter B, I'm going to start by subtracting 2x from both sides, and when I do, I'm writing it first. I want x, then y. Now this one's different because the 4/5 is on the wrong side, so I'm going to subtract 4/5 from both sides, and I end up with, I'm going to come up here so I have more room, negative 2x plus y equals negative 4/5. You can't have any fractions or decimals. So I'm going to clear that fraction by multiplying the entire thing by 5. So I get negative 10x plus 5y equals negative 4. That's standard form. X, then y equaling the constant with no fractions or decimals. Letter C, I'm going to start by subtracting 2/3 x from both sides. Leaves me with negative 2/3 x plus y equals 2. So I have the right order, but now I need to eliminate the fraction. I'm going to do so by multiplying everything by a 3. Because that'll eliminate the fraction. I get negative 2x plus 3y equals 6. If you need help multiplying those fractions by the integer, make sure you use a calculator. Letter D, last one. I'm going to take care of the order first. Let's subtract the negative 1.2x first. Subtracting 1.2x gives me negative 1.2x plus y equals 4.5. Now, we're going to play a trick here with decimals. With decimals, you're going to multiply by a form of 10. In this case, I'm only going to multiply by 10 because the largest amount of decimal places I have is 1. Like if I had 2 decimal places, I'd multiply by 100. If I had 3, I'd multiply by 1,000. But because they are only a point and then 1 digit, I'm only going to multiply by 10. So everybody gets multiplied by 10. I get negative 12x plus 10y equals 45. That's standard form. X, then y, equaling the constant with no fractions or decimals. Today's lesson, we wrote the equation of a line in 2 forms. Point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And standard form is ax plus by equals c. Don't forget, no fractions or decimals.